What if I told you that the greatest victory in your life doesn't come from proving something to someone else, but from no longer needing their validation to feel complete? Imagine a life where your happiness and sense of self-worth come entirely from within. What if I told you that the moment you stop seeking approval from those around you, especially from people who have walked away, you gain an immeasurable power? That power is freedom, the freedom to live your life on your own terms, unshaken by the opinions of others. It's not arrogance, it's a quiet confidence that comes from understanding who you truly are and what you're capable of. Once you reach this level of emotional independence, nothing can shake you. You no longer need anyone's permission to be who you are. The true power lies in letting go of the need for validation, and in doing so, you step into a version of yourself that is unstoppable. So if you're ready to unlock this power and stop relying on others for your worth, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me what this message means to you. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Pain of Loss. The pain of loss is a feeling that's hard to explain, especially when the other person doesn't recognize their mistake. When someone leaves us without even admitting that they messed up, the feeling of abandonment becomes even more bitter. It seems like this pain never goes away, that it lingers day after day. It feels like something is left unfinished, like there's no closure. This is the moment when we're challenged to understand that often the person who left has no awareness of the impact they've caused, or doesn't care about our pain. This is the first obstacle, accepting that the other person can move on without any remorse while we remain stuck in suffering. However, it's important to realize that this feeling of being left behind isn't a reflection of who we are or what we've done. Most of the time, it's simply the consequence of the other person's decisions. Pain is just a symptom, not the cause. You need to look inside yourself and begin to realize that, even without the other person acknowledging their fault, you have the ability to move forward. It may seem difficult, of course, but it is possible. What really complicates the situation is that the other person refuses to take responsibility, making you feel small or inadequate. Deep down, it's a process of devaluation, and that's where the pain transforms. Instead of seeing it as a burden, you can view it as a challenge, an opportunity to become stronger. If you can't change the other person, what you can do is change the way you deal with the situation. Understanding that the pain won't fade because someone refuses to acknowledge their mistake simply means that this person isn't ready to grow or evolve. And you? Are you ready? Because unlike the other, you have the chance to learn from the pain, to use the experience as a stepping stone for growth. It doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it means there's a real opportunity to turn suffering into something that will shape a stronger version of yourself. And when that pain starts to fade, when you stop looking at the other person and start focusing on yourself, something curious will happen. The weight will begin to lift and the sense of being trapped in the loss will lose its grip. The pain, which once seemed endless, will start to turn into a lesson. But for that to happen, you need to take a step back, emotionally distance yourself from the situation. But that's not something that happens automatically. It requires effort, and most importantly, the understanding that the healing process only begins when you decide to truly release that pain. Chapter 2. The Power of Indifference. Indifference is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful responses you can give after a breakup. When someone acts indifferent to you, when they stop reacting to your emotions, it hits right at the core of your ego. You start questioning yourself, doubting your worth. The person who once meant everything to you now seems to be completely unaffected, and that lack of reaction leaves you rattled. It's almost like an emotional dead zone. Nothing they say or do seems to make a difference anymore, and that's the ultimate power move. For those who are left behind, this indifference is a wake-up call. It's a signal that you no longer hold the same place in the other person's life. It stings, it hurts, and it can make you feel insignificant. But here's the thing. This is exactly what you need to experience if you want to break free. If someone chooses to be indifferent, it's not because you're unworthy. It's simply that they no longer want to engage with you. It's their choice, not yours. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll regain control of your own emotions. This is the moment you stop chasing validation from the person who no longer matters, Now, don't make the mistake of thinking that indifference is a sign of weakness. Quite the opposite. It's a deliberate strategy, a way of maintaining emotional control in the face of turmoil. When you choose to be indifferent in response to someone's actions, you stop playing their emotional game. You're no longer reacting out of impulse or hurt, but instead, you're choosing to maintain your dignity. It's like walking away from a fight without saying a word. You let your silence speak louder than any argument ever could. This doesn't mean you should bottle up your emotions or pretend to be unaffected, when in reality, you're hurting. Rather, it's about recognizing the power you have over your own feelings. It's about gaining clarity and choosing not to be ruled by the whims of someone else's behavior. When you respond with indifference, you become the one who controls the narrative. And that's when the real shift begins, the moment you stop being desperate for attention or acknowledgement from someone who's already made their decision to leave. Chapter 3. Stoicism. Emotional control. When it comes to handling the emotional chaos of a breakup, Stoicism is a philosophy that teaches us the power of emotional control. It's about understanding that our emotions are not in charge of us, but rather we have the ability to control them. Stoics believe that we should focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. In the context of a breakup, what can we control? Our reactions, our behavior, and our mindset. We cannot control the other person's actions or decisions, but we can control how we respond to them. One of the core principles of Stoicism is the idea of detachment, not in the sense of being cold or uncaring, but in recognizing that we are not defined by our emotions. You can feel hurt, disappointed, or angry, but those emotions do not have to dictate your actions. Instead of letting your emotions dictate your next move, Stoicism encourages you to step back and evaluate the situation rationally. By practicing emotional control, you can avoid making impulsive decisions that might make you regret later. It's about taking a deep breath, reflecting, and then acting with purpose. For example, after a breakup, instead of reaching out, begging, or seeking validation, you can choose to take a stoic approach. Think of it like this. When emotions run high, the best decision is often no decision at all. Stoicism teaches us that it's better to be silent than to say something we'll later regret. Instead of trying to fix everything or regain control, Stoicism guides us to focus inward. Ask yourself, what do I need to learn from this situation? That's the power of Stoic thinking. It shifts the focus away from the other person and brings it back to your own growth. The beauty of Stoicism is that it provides a sense of peace amidst the emotional storm. It teaches us that we are not victims of circumstance, but rather active participants in our own lives. When you practice emotional control, you are better able to manage your feelings and stop them from clouding your judgment. It's not about suppressing emotions, but rather understanding and mastering them. By adopting a Stoic mindset, you can move forward after a breakup with clarity, strength, and a sense of inner peace, no longer allowing the actions of another to control your emotions. Chapter 4. The trap of begging and chasing. After a breakup, the impulse to beg or chase the other person is incredibly strong. It's natural to want closure, to make them see how much they mean to you. But here's the thing. Begging and chasing only reinforce the very decision they made to walk away. It sends the message that you're not okay with the situation, that you're desperate to make them feel differently. And let's be real, no one is attracted to desperation. In fact, it's often the opposite of what will draw someone back in. The harder you chase, the further they'll run, and the more you reinforce the emotional divide between you both. Think about it this way. When you beg or chase, you're giving away your power. You're placing your emotional well-being into the hands of someone who has already made their decision. Instead of focusing on your own growth and healing, you're fixating on a person who no longer values you in the way you deserve. The more you chase, the more you lose yourself in the process. You stop being the strong, self-respecting individual you once were and start becoming someone who is solely defined by the need for the other person's approval. This isn't just about self-respect. It's about attracting the right kind of energy back into your life. When you chase someone who isn't interested, you're teaching them that their indifference doesn't matter, that they can do as they please without consequence. What you need to realize is that your value doesn't come from their acknowledgement or their return. It comes from within you. And when you stop chasing, when you start focusing on your own growth, you'll find that not only will your emotional strength increase, but you'll also become more attractive. Not because you're trying to be, but because you're choosing to be strong, independent and self-assured. So the next time you feel the urge to reach out, to beg for their attention or affection, take a moment to stop. Take a deep breath, remember your worth, and choose to focus on yourself. Instead of chasing after them, chase after your own dreams, your own personal growth. It's the only thing that will truly bring you peace and, ironically, may even make the other person realize what they lost. But regardless of their realization, your focus should always be on making sure you are better than you were yesterday. Not for them, but for yourself. Chapter 5. The Dark Psychology of Indifference. Indifference is more than just a simple act of emotional detachment. In the world of psychology, it is a tool that has the potential to wreak havoc on the ego of the person being ignored. It leaves the other person confused, questioning their actions, and even second-guessing the decision they made. When someone is indifferent, there is no immediate response, no emotional feedback. The silence creates a void, a space where the person who left starts wondering if they made the right choice. They may not admit it, but deep down the lack of reaction starts to work on them. It's one of the most effective psychological tools to make someone doubt their decisions. This is where the true power of indifference comes into play. It's not about playing games or being manipulative, it's about preserving your own emotional energy and not allowing the actions of another person to control your state of mind. When you don't react, when you don't beg or chase, you force the other person to look inward. They start to question themselves. Did they make a mistake? Did they misjudge the situation? By not reacting, you disrupt their emotional certainty and throw them into a state of uncertainty. This kind of psychological dissonance often leads to regret, and while they may never confess it, they start to feel the weight of their decision. The longer you stay indifferent, the more it chips away at their confidence. They can pretend they don't care, but indifference forces them to confront the fact that their actions haven't had the desired effect on you. It's a powerful reversal of roles. The person who once held the power now finds themselves questioning whether their decision was the right one. And while they may never admit it, deep down they feel the impact of their indifference being turned back on them. The beauty of this dark psychology is that it doesn't require confrontation. It's all about what you don't do, not what you do. By simply not reacting, you force the other person to deal with their own feelings. And as they do, they will come to realize, even if subconsciously, that their indifference is now affecting them just as much as it once affected you. They won't confess it, but you'll know. The impact of their indifference has left a lasting impression on their ego. Chapter 6. Personal Growth in Silence. True transformation often happens in silence, far away from the eyes of others. After a breakup, when the world is watching, or when you're expected to be wallowing in pain, the real work begins in the quiet. Moments when no one is looking. While the other person might think you're falling apart, the truth is you're focusing on one of the most important things: your own growth. This is when you start to invest in yourself in ways that have nothing to do with the other person. This is the time to focus on your own development, to pursue things that make you feel whole again. During this period, the temptation to show the world you're over it can be strong, but that's not what this journey is about. It's not about proving anything to anyone, not even the person who left. Instead, it's about truly committing to becoming the best version of yourself. Maybe that means picking up that hobby you always put off, reading books that challenge your perspective, or starting a new fitness routine that helps you reconnect with your body. It's in these moments, when you're focused on personal growth, that you begin to find your peace. You're not waiting for validation from someone else. Your growth is your own gift to yourself. Think of it like this. The most successful people in the world aren't focused on proving others wrong. They focus on building themselves up. This is your time to focus on your own strengths, to heal your wounds, and to come out stronger. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of revenge or making the other person feel the way you do. But real success, real strength, comes when you channel your energy inward. When you focus on growth, everything else, including the other person's opinion, becomes irrelevant. You start to realize that your happiness is no longer tied to someone else's approval or presence in your life. In this period of growth, you'll be surprised at how much you evolve. The pain that once felt like it would swallow you whole will eventually transform into a story of resilience. You'll begin to feel like the best version of yourself, not because you're pretending to be okay, but because you're genuinely taking charge of your life. The true victory is realizing that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's validation. When you let go of that need, the healing process begins. And as you move forward, you'll realize that it wasn't the other person who made you stronger. It was your ability to grow in silence, without the need for applause. Chapter 7. The Inevitable Return. The female ego, it's a curious thing, the human ego. It operates in mysterious ways, and when it comes to relationships, it has its own set of rules. For women, especially after a breakup, there is often an intriguing cycle that takes place. The ego can drive a person to return to a relationship, not because they necessarily miss the person, but because they miss the control they once had over them. This isn't about love or longing, it's about reclaiming power. The emotional pull of wanting to feel that dominance again is often more powerful than the actual desire to reconnect. When a woman returns after some time apart, it's not always because she's realized how much she misses you. It's because she's testing whether she still has that control. She wants to know if you're still vulnerable to her, still reacting to her in the same way you did before. If you are, it gives her a sense of satisfaction, a validation of her own worth. The real question here, though, is whether you're still the same person she left behind. Have you grown? Have you evolved? Or are you still the same person waiting to give her that sense of power? This is the trap that many fall into. They let the other person back in, not realizing that they've simply become part of an ego game. The key to breaking this cycle is understanding that you do not need to validate the other person's ego, especially not at the expense of your own growth. If she comes back, you need to ask yourself, does this align with my growth and well-being, or is this just a return to old patterns? It's about recognizing that the relationship or the idea of it is no longer the priority. Your personal growth and strength should be. If you're truly focused on your own growth, the return of someone from your past shouldn't be a distraction. It's a test, one that you need to pass by maintaining your independence and emotional control. She may come back, but you must be the one who holds the power now, not because you're playing a game, but because you've truly transformed. The ego of both parties will be in play, but only by maintaining your own sense of self-worth and independence will you be able to truly move on and elevate yourself beyond this old dynamic. Chapter 8. Transformation. Without the need for validation. True transformation doesn't rely on external validation. It's not about proving something to someone else or getting recognition for the changes you've made. Real change comes when you start doing the work for yourself. When you focus on becoming better, not for the applause of others, but because you know deep down it's the right thing to do. After a breakup, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that your worth is tied to the approval of the person who left. But in reality, the most powerful kind of transformation is the one that happens quietly, without anyone watching or acknowledging it. When you begin to shift your focus from seeking approval to seeking self-improvement, you start to see yourself in a new light. It's like looking in a mirror and realizing that the person staring back at you is someone worthy of love and respect. But most importantly, that respect comes from within. You no longer need someone else to tell you that you're doing well. The internal validation becomes your fuel, and it becomes far more powerful than anything anyone else could offer. This transformation is also about letting go of the need for a reunion to prove that you've changed. It's not about showing the other person that you're better off, stronger, or more successful. Those are just temporary satisfactions. The real transformation happens when you stop caring about the external approval and start valuing your own growth. Ask yourself, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? These are the kinds of questions that drive true, lasting change. The beauty of this kind of transformation is that it's sustainable. You'll no longer be dependent on a future "I told you so" moment to feel validated. You've already given that power to yourself. When you do the work not for someone else but for yourself, it's a sign of true strength. And even if the person who left you never sees this transformation, you'll know it's happening. That's the greatest reward. Knowing that you are evolving in ways that make you proud, independent of any external recognition. Chapter 9. The Test of Return. When she comes back, it's an interesting dynamic that happens when someone from your past comes back into the picture after a breakup. When your ex-partner returns, it often feels like a test. They may not even realize they're testing you, but they are. They want to see if they still have the same power over you, if they can still stir the same emotions, and if you will react in the same way you did before. This is where you need to step into your power and recognize that your response will determine whether you've truly transformed. If you've been working on yourself, focusing on your growth and emotional control, the natural instinct might be to react. You might feel an urge to prove how much you've changed, to show them that you're doing better, or to make them regret their decision. But here's the crucial thing. Your response should be one of indifference, not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of strength. When they come back, you don't need to chase them or beg for their affection. Instead, you can choose to stay calm, composed, and unbothered. The power here lies in your ability to maintain your emotional control. This doesn't mean you should be cruel or dismissive, but it does mean that you should not fall back into old patterns of needing their approval. You've done the work to grow, and now it's time to see if you've truly embraced that growth. When they return, treat them with respect, but also with a sense of detachment. Show them that you are no longer the same person who would chase after them or beg for their attention. You've learned the value of self-respect and independence. In a sense, their return can be a form of validation, but not in the way you might think. It's not about proving anything to them, but about proving to yourself that you can stand firm in your transformation. It's a test, yes, but the most important thing is that you pass it by showing that you don't need them anymore. Your worth no longer hinges on their return. It's rooted in your own journey and growth, and that ultimately is the greatest victory. Chapter 10. The Final Victory. Overcoming the need for validation. The ultimate victory in the journey of emotional growth and healing comes when you no longer need anyone's validation to feel whole. This is the point where you realize that your self-worth isn't determined by someone else's opinion of you, nor by their actions. When you reach this stage, the opinions of those who have walked away from your life no longer have the power to affect your mood, your actions, or your sense of self. You are in control of your own happiness, and no one can take that from you. At this stage, the breakup, the pain, and the emotional turmoil all begin to feel like distant memories. They no longer hold any power over you because you've learned to see the situation for what it truly was, a part of your growth process. What once seemed like a devastating loss has now become a valuable lesson, one that you carry with you as a reminder of how far you've come. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to the person who left or to anyone else. You've already proven everything you need to yourself. In many ways, this is the point of true freedom. You're no longer dependent on someone else to make you feel good about yourself. You've reached a place where you can stand tall regardless of whether anyone else notices. It's not about arrogance. It's about confidence and knowing your own worth. And ironically, when you reach this point, you become more attractive not because you're trying to be, but because you radiate the strength of someone who is whole, independent, and self-sufficient. When you no longer seek external validation, something amazing happens. The people who once left or abandoned you start to feel the weight of their own decisions. They may never admit it, but they start to realize that their departure didn't have the effect they thought it would. They might wonder if they made a mistake, but by this point, it doesn't matter to you anymore. You have transcended the need for their validation, and in doing so, you've taken your power back. Now that you've seen the power of embracing your own worth without needing anyone else's approval, let me ask you this. Are you ready to step into the freedom that comes with knowing your true value? It's not about waiting for someone to come back or for someone else to validate your growth. It's about you right now taking control and becoming the person you were always meant to be. When you stop seeking external validation, you open the door to endless possibilities and true emotional strength. So remember, the real victory isn't in proving anything to others, it's in showing up for yourself every single day. If you're committed to this journey, make sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments how you're taking control of your own power.